Welcome back to Soar Financially. My name is Kai Hoffman. I'm the @JR Mining guy on Twitter and the CEO of the Soar Financial Group. Thank you so much for joining us. We have an interesting conversation lined up here in our studio in downtown Vancouver. We are joined by Chen Lin of What is Chen Selling and Buying? I think that's the name of your letter, chenpicks.com. And really looking forward to the conversation because we're going to talk a lot about silver, commodities in general, but also China. Let's call it the China effect. Okay, what is happening? Are we turning China into a monster, or is it just a little tame line pup or line cup? Right? Chen has fantastic insights as well, looking what's coming out of China in terms of data and analysis. So I'm really looking forward to picking his brain and see if it's realistic what we're talking about here in terms of de-dollarization as well. So I'm really curious. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button as well when you get a chance. But let me introduce my guest now. Chen, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming on. It's good to see you again here in Vancouver.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, it's great. Lovely Vancouver, this beautiful, beautiful season.
Yeah. You're sitting in front of me in a suit and I'm wearing a t-shirt, so I feel slightly underdressed, but it's going to be 27 degrees outside today. So I'm really looking forward to it. As you said, Vancouver is beautiful when the sun is out.
Absolutely. So. I'm going to give a presentation, so I'm dressed up.
Perfect. No, you got to play the part. You got to play the role there. Fantastic. Chen, again, thanks for coming to the studio. Let's start with a general question. Like, what's your assessment of the market these days? Like, let's start there, and then we'll unpack a lot of things.
Oh yeah, just one word: crashing. Commodity are crashing. If you look at it, I'm going to have a detailed presentation at the MIF later today. If you look at it 3 weeks ago, that's how it started. Chinese PPI was the minus 3.5%, if I remember correctly. It's lower than expected, much lower than expected. And ever since that, you can feel the sucking sound from Tokyo, from Hong Kong to Singapore to London, even back to Chicago. That day, commodity just got crashed. It broke down the key support, and it has been going down in the past 3 weeks.
So is that foreshadowing the upcoming recession that everybody's fearing? Is that what we're witnessing right now, and China being the driver?
Yeah, China is having a lot of issues. The key problem is China is going to the deflation spiral again. People thought, China coming out of COVID, they will have a COVID surge. Instead of a surge, actually it's deflation. It's very, very, very interesting, actually fascinating to watch. So it's just opposite from people thought.
What is causing that? Like, why is that? Because every analyst in North America or in the Western Hemisphere expect, we're going to have, as you said, like a China surge. Like, we're going to sell more commodities. There's going to be a building and construction boom again. Gold sales are going to go through the roof. Those are all the headlines I've been reading, but none of that has really happened. But why is that?
Right, that PPI just broke broke the camel's back. Basically, people said, we're deflation. Okay, so what happened in China? China is a little bit different than United States. The government didn't send out any money. There's no handout. So basically, you're on your own. Okay, they may helping the business. Some business gave them some low interest loan, but that's pretty much it is. So coming out of COVID, there's a lot of small business and also people who lost job, who didn't have a job, have very tough a few years, and then they were living on their savings. So they're scared. They're still concerned. They're not willing to spend. And also what COVID caused is the housing market, the red hot housing market started to going downhill and then going down very fast. So you can say, some people say the housing bubble finally popped in China, but it's not really collapsed, but it's really going down. And it has been very clear going down in first time in multiple decades.
So China, breakdown in the PPI is really causing the commodities to sort of crash right now. Copper is $3.60, zinc is at $1. I haven't looked at the other commodities. I can look that up in a second, but just top of my head, recession fears are looming in the US as well. Is that part of that as well? Is that being priced in right now? It's silver as well, by the way. If you want to throw that into the discussion, because it is 50% in industrial metal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything's coming down, but it's coming down from very high price. Okay, so this recession is quite different. And if you look at I have a chart of Chinese PPI history. If you look at that, 3.5 minus 3.8 is probably the bottom of the range. So if you compare with in the past decade, we are pretty close. And the PPI's point of view, PPI chart is pretty close to the bottom, I can say. And then PPI generally leads the Chinese inventory by 2 to 3 months. So because PPI goes down, you think about people don't stock, they destocking, right? They don't buy. But then when PPI started to turn up, people start restocking again. So that started the next cycle. So that's another thing I want to talk about is even China's, there's so many other sectors is collapsing, but one sector is extremely booming. That's Chinese export. Mm-hmm. Chinese export, it's shocking. The data is really shocking because last year, Chinese surplus doubled the year before. But then you say, oh, it's COVID. Yeah. But this year, it's doubling last year. So their surplus is shooting at it. We don't know. It's only beginning of the year, 5 months into the year. It's 1.5 trillion in surplus, 1.5 trillion. So what happened? So there are people say, their research say, oh, must be fake data. But, there are people try to do money laundering, do some this and that with the trade, right? But maybe they make a few million here, a few million there. The total may be a billion, a few billion, but not 1.5 trillion, right? So there's the key trend is Chinese is exporting much higher valued good. That's the key. China is the largest automobile exporter this year. They overtaken Japan. Chinese, for example, Chinese electrical car, they sell very cheap. They sell 10,000 US to 12,000 US new car.
Wow. Is that BYD?
BYD and many others.
Okay.
The leading actual exporter is Tesla. When they have a Shanghai factory. So, but Tesla is selling at higher price, more like 20,000, but still cheaper than United States, much cheaper than United States. So, China actually to have a huge export, especially for developing country. For the U.S., we probably want a higher quality, higher safety, same for Germany. But for the developing country, this is good enough. So there's a massive export of electrical cars, solar panel, battery, and all the electronics, like a TV, for example. TV, I was told TV will be the next microwave. Because in China, $100, you can buy a decent TV now, $100. Yeah. And then they will drop below $100. Yeah. So same as microwave. Microwave used to be very high end, a few $100. Now it's $30 US. I mean, Canadian maybe a little bit more. So this actually enable a lot of developing country people live a decent life. So I see this is an emerging trend. If you look past the recession fear, you see, so that's my thesis of talk today is we are at the next commodity super cycle. Last super cycle was modernized China. This super cycle is modernize the world. It's just people for a better life. Because if you have an electrical car, even it's $10,000, $12,000 car, they use almost same material as a $30,000 car. So you use a lot more steel, a lot more aluminum, a lot more copper, a lot more, different lithium and all the different commodities. So I see eventually this will take off. And then we, investors should prepare for the next super cycle. And then from the PPI data, I think we are more closer to the bottom. I say closer to the bottom than to the top.
Interesting. Okay, really interesting comments there. It gives me a lot of food for thought here. Interesting. Like you because I'm trying to frame that into a question or into a comment, because China is making inroads in, as you said, like all over the world, besides the Western Hemisphere, right? So Africa and other continents, like they're trying to get into South America, finding new export markets. So I find that really interesting, finding a new market for their products.
Right. Basically, for the booming middle class, you think about Vietnam, think about Mexico, think about that. Their country benefit from the trade war, and they have a bit middle class. They're happy with $10,000, $12,000 cars and then $100 TV. They have, but those use the same material as the regular, our TV.
Crazy. I want to ask you, like, do you have an idea what they're doing with their surplus, the 1.5 trillion you mentioned? Like,
that's a very good question. That's a very good question. So what happened is China used to buy U.S. government bond that they don't buy anymore. So that's why our interest is pretty high. You use this a dollar loan. They start to flood the world with U.S. dollar. those surplus. It really doesn't show up on their foreign reserve, but they are loaning out the dollar so people can buy more Chinese goods.
Okay. So they're turning it themselves into a big bank.
Take a bank, and then they wish to be paid back in Chinese currency. Yeah. So that's how kind of they're pushing their currency.
That's how they're laundering U.S. dollars into Chinese yuan. Okay. Okay, interesting. Right. Like, I find that conversation interesting because depending on who you talk to, like people that live in China say, well, we're giving them too much credit. While here in North America is like, China is in the computer games, the boss. It's the final enemy, right? Like, when it comes to topics like de-dollarization and we're under attack, and you mentioned trade wars and things like that. Where do you sit? Because you live in America, but you're obviously Chinese and have Chinese family in China. So where do you stand on the spectrum? Do we give them too much credit, or are we underestimating them?
Oh, there's a different perspective. Okay, so I think for China, housing bubble is real, it's collapsing is real, deflation is real, but I think the demand for raw material will pick up dramatically as we going. So I'm quite excited about the commodity sector. And so in China, one of the key in Chinese company is cutthroat competition. They really cutthroat. They really, and then they compete on price, but the material will be used, right? You sell more, more material will be consumed. So that's what I say is I don't see China collapsing anytime soon, but just because they are exporting around the world, all the electronics, all the cars and solar panel, all the others, that will increase commodity demand. So for commodity investor, and that's something I pay most attention to.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk commodities. Let's talk silver also. It's specific because we always have you on as a sort of our silver expert. Videos are highly viewed as well. Because you said silver is the new lithium at one point. It was a really well-performing video. Lots of good insights there. Where are we right now in that sort of, I don't know, scenario?
Yeah, I think we talked about that a year ago this time. And since then, the Silver Institute published a new report. Yeah. Actually, if you read that, it published last month, you read it, it's exactly what I was talking about last year, okay? They dramatically increased the silver consumption, silver usage in solar panel. They increased from 12% to 28%. Okay, growth. The growth will be, but I still think 28% is too low. But because they will readjust again and again. So I think it's more towards 35 to 40% growth. Okay, and then they also put a big paragraph in the report. If you read that, they're talking about the TOPCon, new technology, talk about the HJT, new technology. Yeah. We talk about it.
Yeah, we did.
And then they said on their report, I'm going to put that in my presentation. This will dramatically increase the silver loading factor. But they are a little bit more conservative. They think in 3 years. But I think it's in a year or two. So I see the silver consumption will in the solar panel will go dramatically higher, and will take more and more silver from the silver balance, the deficit. Last year we have the highest deficit in silver in 20 years. This year we'll have another huge deficit.
I think the number was 120 million ounce deficit, something like
that. Yeah. You think about then solar panel, this year solar panel, according to my estimate, could take 200 million ounce away. Okay, and then they are doubling every 2-3 years. You think about that, the scale of the deficit. And once people see another huge deficit this year, maybe we'll truly convinced. They will be truly convinced a silver bull is here. And then you look at the cycle, look at the calendar. The Fed, it's a decent chance Fed will start cutting interest rate by the end of the year. If Fed cut interest rate, gold start moving higher, and also the end of the year, the season. We live through. It will be a rough period for a few months, right? So, but September come, October come, that's a season for gold. A Fed may cut interest rate, that fuel the fire of gold, and then silver will go much higher. And then with this new silver, people start to see another deficit coming. I'm quite optimistic for silver.
Okay, we got to talk current price movement of silver. Like we talked about what's happening in China, obviously. So China's price movement, it's been hammered down quite a bit. Like we touched on $26, but now we're trading closer to 22. That's a fairly big move, and it's underperforming gold. Like it's bigger brother.
Oh,
right?
yeah. there's what do you call machine trading? They have all these algorithms. Gold move 1%, silver should move 2 to 3%. It's on the way up, on the way down. Okay, they just use this algorithm to trade. I mean, if we talk about that, there's another metal used in solar panels is tellurium. Tellurium is almost at all-time high. Even with all the metals right now, all the metal crashing tellurium because of the demand. I was talking to a silver producing company. They said they can sell their silver concentrate at premium to the market because the smelter need the silver. There is a demand. There is a strong demand of physical silver out there, and then they can sell at a premium. So I'm fine. The trader want to push it down. It's a good buying opportunity. Put it this way.
Yeah, last video, I think 2-3 months ago when we chatted as well, we said, well, buy the dips, right? We used to say that for all the meme stocks, but I think gold and silver in particular are in that phase right now. Do you have a price prediction where it bottoms? There's like, because you said we're in for a couple of rough months now, like the summer is going to be extremely slow. I'm curious what you say about the sentiment at the conference you'll be attending here as well. So
sentiment
is pretty bleak,
very bad. There are people talking to me say, "Do you ever want to invest in junior?" Which actually could be a contrarian indicator. Yeah. Okay, it could be. So why do we put money in junior? But for company, there's much less company this conference than before than the PDAC one. And but I think it's good. It's for smart investor. It's time for you to do research and to find a good company or just buy commodity. Yeah.
No, interesting. Okay. You also brought a couple stock picks as well. So I'm curious, like who you're recommending. What is Chen buying right now? What is Chen selling? Are you participating in private placements right now? Like I'm curious what your sentiment is right now.
Yeah. I participate quite a few private placement recently. So. I see as a good opportunity is you can buy at a discount, and also you can have some warrant. So one of my bigger participation is company called Soar Pascal. They come here first time to my panel tomorrow. Okay, so their story is that they have this historical tailing at Soar Pascal, which has been running for 300, 400 years. Originally, it was a gold and copper mine.
Where is it located?
It's in Peru. Soar Pascal. So they used to be two mining company listed on New York Stock Exchange. One is Phillips Dodge. Phillips Dodge now is was taken over by the what's the name? But another is Soar Pascal. So only two companies listed. So they have the historic tailing, and then there's a mine, Soar Pascal mine there, run by Glencore. Their Glencore's majority owned that's called Vulcan. They own. So they're running out of ore. They has been negotiating with Glencore for 5 years. 5 years. A 5 year pass. The share price suffer because of the Glencore back and forth. Originally, Glencore want to sell them on the JV, and then they change back and forth. But right now, their finish line there because Glencore need to close it down the mine in next 12 months or so. So they need the ore. Okay. So they reach a deal with Glencore. Glencore going to hand them money, $2 million. You don't see that very often. There's no string attached. $2 million. So the only thing they pay back when after production, they pay back. Okay. So they're going to use that money to drill out to see where the high grade is. And then Glencore going to pump it into their giant mill. 15,000 tons a day, one of the biggest.
That's
massive. They're going to pump that and process that. They have estimate at least 500 million ounces of silver. 500 million ounces. That's only part of it. It's only part of it. So that's only the tailing. We're not talking about historical low-grade stockpile. Low-grade historical stockpile now is high-grade.
Good point, actually.
So there's a mountain of a stockpile over there as well. So they will do the tailing first because it's higher grade. You think about, as high as 10% copper 300 years ago. What's the recovery? Right. You have 1 ounce of gold, 10 years, 300 years. What's the recovery? So it's right there sitting, but it's sitting on the bottom. But Glencore already have a plan. They want to suck it at the bottom to have a higher grade, to have a biggest. But anyway, Glencore. Well, I will put it this way: Glencore may not be able to buy Teck, but they could possibly buy our little Cerro Pasco, which we worried about. We're going to talk to the management. How do we fend out potential takeover? Because you're talking about $10 to $15 billion worth of material just on the tailing, high grade, very, very high grade.
And what's the market cap right now?
Oh, it's about 30, 40 million.
Okay. Yeah.
Very, very low. So and then they're 5 weeks away from getting the final permit to start. 5 weeks.
Okay.
So we waited for 5 years. This 5 final weeks.
Okay.
And then Glencore will hand it. Within 7 days, Glencore will hand the money. That's the agreement.
The $2 million is conditional on the permit, obviously, and then they get the $2 million as a startup investment. Interesting. Okay, I'll put that on the watch list.
That's very, very close. So that's another one. Another company is I'm looking at. I put out quite some money in my private placement. This is my private. It's called Lucas Mining. It's in Mexico. They're starting up a gold and silver mine. In Mexico, they had startup issues.
That's a Luca Mining, you said?
Luca Mining, Luca Mining. The company is right here at MIF, and they finally reached the goal of 500 ton. They're moving towards 1,000 ton a day.
Okay.
Once they start, they will generate a very nice free cash flow. $1,000 cost base. At this gold price, even gold come in a little bit still.
Even at 1,900, it's a decent margin.
Very decent margin. So then they start generating free cash flow. Then they can improve. They have another mine. They have a polymetal mine. They have a copper, zinc, gold and silver, and gold and silver refractory. So they want to get the second mine. They're in production. Cocoa Camarado. I've been there. So they want to how to get the gold and silver out. That's additional free cash flow. So they can improve and improve and improve. So this is the beginning. The free cash flow. They should get it out. They should get it this year.
Yeah. Fantastic. No, it's definitely a stock picker's market right now.
Oh, it is a stock picker's market.
Not the whole market moves, but if you find the individual stocks, you can actually make some money.
Oh, yeah.
There is that opportunity because valuations, as you said, like, what is it, $30 million with $10 billion in situ? There is a disconnect.
$10 billion and ready to pump. It's a historical tailing in Cerro Pasco. It's already gone down. And most importantly, they got the designation of national strategic importance because 95% of people there want to pump out the tailing because they have lead there, pollution. So national strategic importance. Even Glencore didn't get it. They have it.
Okay. So they're cleaning up the site there as well.
They're cleaning up the site and generate a lot of cash flow. That's
awesome. Fantastic. Chen, thank you so much for coming by. Great information. Where can we find more about you?
ChenPix.com.
Okay, I mentioned that in the intro. Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome, Chen. Thank you so much for coming in. And everybody else, thank you so much for watching. It was the Soar Financially. We chatted with the fantastic Chen Lin of ChenPix.com. Go check out the website. He's presenting here in town this week at a conference as well. Go check out his presentation. I think it'll be online at some point as well. So go find that when you get a chance. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button. It's right there. Subscribe. It says subscribe on it. It's the big letter S right there. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And leave a comment, leave a like. What do you think is happening? Where do you see silver price heading? What is pushing prices higher and lower? What's your opinion? Put that down in the comments below. We want to hear from you. And we'll be back with lots more content. Thank you so much for joining us.